I don't have a home, not even a blanket. But you looked at me like I mattered." He was just a hungry man with torn shoes and a trembling voice. She gave him shelter when the whole village shut their doors. But what she didn't know was who he truly was, and a year later he would return, with something that would leave the entire town speechless. Hey everyone, welcome to Legacy Tales, where one act of kindness can rewrite an entire life. The night was cold, the kind that bites into your bones. Agnes, a widow in her 70s, was pouring hot water into a kettle when she heard knocking on her wooden door. She lived alone on a quiet farm just outside a small town. Most people in the village thought she was strange, too kind, too trusting, too soft. When she opened the door, she saw him. A young man, clothes soaked from the rain, mud up to his knees, and hands shivering. He looked up and spoke softly. "I don't want trouble, ma'am. Just somewhere dry to close my eyes. I can sleep in your barn, I swear. Just a few hours." Agnes didn't speak. She looked at him, not like a stranger, but like a son who'd lost his way. She stepped aside and pointed to the back. "Barn's unlocked. There's hay and a blanket. Don't freeze." He looked stunned. No one had shown him kindness in a long time. That night, he slept under the barn roof, warm for the first time in weeks. He didn't steal. He didn't ask for food. And in the morning, he was gone. But not without leaving a small note behind. "Thank you for treating me like a human. Someday I'll repay you." I promise Agnes didn't expect anything. She'd seen many drifters before. Most were lost to the world. But something about this one felt different. Weeks passed. Months came and went. The village kept gossiping. "Why'd you let a stranger into your land, Agnes?" But she only smiled and kept watering her plants. Kindness to her wasn't a transaction. It was who she was. Then, exactly 1 year later, on the same date, a black car pulled up outside Agnes's farmhouse, and what stepped out would change everything. The door creaked open as Agnes stepped onto her porch. She squinted at the shiny black car parked outside. Definitely not from around here. The engine stopped, and a tall man stepped out wearing a crisp suit and holding a small wooden box. Agnes stared for a moment, unsure, until he spoke. "Ma'am, I told you I'd come back." Her hand froze mid-air. That voice, it was him, the same young man she gave shelter to. But this time, he looked completely different. Clean, confident, like someone who had just stepped out of a magazine. She blinked. "Is that really you?" He nodded and walked closer, placing the wooden box gently in her hands. "I don't expect you to remember me. That night in your barn. It saved my life." Agnes opened the box slowly, and her hands trembled. Inside was a gold-embossed letter with a government seal, and under it, a property deed. "I was a soldier," he continued. "Got injured, ended up homeless. Nobody cared, not even my own family. But that night, you looked at me like I was still human. You gave me shelter when I was invisible." Agnes was speechless. Tears welled up in her eyes. "But what is all this?" He smiled. "I got back on my feet, applied for veteran support, started a small company helping people like me. This deed, this land, it's yours, right next to mine. You won't ever have to live alone again." Just then, more cars began to pull in. People stepped out, some in wheelchairs, some carrying food baskets, others just smiling warmly. "Who are all these people?" Agnes whispered. "They're just like me," he replied, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "People who were saved by kindness. They heard about what you did, and they wanted to say thank you." The crowd began clapping slowly. Tears streamed down Agnes's face, her quiet farm, now filled with strangers who felt like family. And in the middle of it all, she whispered, "I never thought one blanket could change so many lives." The man smiled. Sometimes it's the smallest doors that open the biggest futures. But the biggest surprise hadn't even happened yet. As the sun began to set behind the fields, painting the sky in soft orange and gold, Agnes sat on her porch, watching the crowd of people laughing, talking, and sharing stories. She couldn't believe what her quiet little farm had become. And then, another car pulled in. But this one wasn't black. It was white, with a small American flag on the front. Two men in formal suits stepped out. One of them approached Agnes and said with a smile, "Ma'am, we were sent by the office of the president. We have a personal message for you." Agnes's heart skipped. The man reached into his coat and handed her an envelope with a golden seal. She opened it slowly. Her hands shook. The letter read, "To Agnes Morgan, for your kindness and humanity in a time when the world forgets, we invite you as our guest of honor to the White House. Your story has touched millions. You reminded us all that the smallest kindness can echo forever." Agnes looked up in disbelief. "What? Why me?" The young man who once slept in her barn walked beside her, eyes full of emotion. "You didn't just save me. You gave me back my dignity. You made me feel seen. I shared your story with the world, Agnes. And now, they see you too." Tears streamed down her wrinkled cheeks as she stood up. She looked at the crowd, the letters, the cars, and finally, him. "You were just a stranger in the rain, and now you've brought the sun back into my life." He smiled softly, voice cracking just a bit. "No, Agnes. You were the light when everything else went dark." The crowd clapped again. Some wiped away tears. A small boy from the group ran up to her and hugged her legs. "My daddy said you're the reason we have a home." Agnes knelt and hugged him tight. In that moment, she wasn't just a lonely old woman on a forgotten farm. She was the thread that tied together stories, families, and second chances. The camera slowly pulled away. Agnes standing in the middle of the crowd, hand in hand with the man she once gave a blanket to. The sky above her, open, vast, and glowing. Because sometimes, it takes just one small act of kindness to change not just a life, but the world around it. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments which moment hit you the most. Where are you watching this from? We love hearing from our Global Legacy Tales family. And if you believe kindness still exists in this world, share this video and help spread the message, because you never know. Your small act might just be someone's turning point.